And we are live. Oh, I have to turn off the air conditioning. 1 second. Oh, hello. Hello to our wonderful author, Leah Henderson.
Hello.
It's so great to have you on our video podcast. And I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel for the New Books Network. And I have a splendid author, and I'm so glad that someone of your stature has agreed to be on the show today.
Of course, it's my honor.
Okay, so Leah, let's get down to business. We can spend the
Sure.
whole day exchanging compliments. You have a new book out. I think it launched in January.
That is correct. That is
Daddy Speaks Love,
That
a
is
beautiful picture book. Tell us all about it, and then we'll
Yeah.
talk about your life.
All right. Oh, just a little bit of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, not too much.
So Daddy Speaks Love actually came out of a phone conversation with the illustrator of the book, E.B. Lewis. And a lot of times the author and illustrator are kept separate on projects. And so, you know, as an author, I will contribute my words and hand it off. And then it will be given to an illustrator to add to that, to make it even better. But in this case, we were on the phone one day. We are good friends, and we were on the phone, and he happened to say to me during the quarantine summer of 2020, did you hear the words of Gianna Floyd talking to President Biden about her father, George Floyd? And I had not heard the words at the memorial service or before the memorial service. And so I was like, you know, what did she say? And he was like, she said, my daddy changed the world. And he said, I just wanted to create art from that. I wanted to sit down and really get in there. And he was like, and I would love a poem to go with that art. And so we kind of were talking about how he was going to get somebody to write a poem and to go along with his work. And I happened to say, you know, while I could never probably write that poem because it's so close to her, that experience is so personal to her. It is on a global stage, right? The tragic death of her father, the murder of her father. But for me, I feel like that is a very personal story. But I started thinking about just dads in general and the ways that dads impact our lives. And I am very close to my dad. And he knows that. He knows my parents. And I started rambling on about all the ways in which my dad affects my world. And he said, Leah, go sit down and write the thing. And I was like, no, I didn't mean it like that. He goes, no, go sit down and write the thing. And so basically the story, the book didn't really take form for me until I thought about how does my dad show love to me and others? And thinking about that got me to Daddy Speaks Love. And so then the book is basically a roadmap of my dad and all the ways that he has shown me and my brother's love and other people that have stepped into our world, and he has become a surrogate father too. And it's also about the other dads who have stepped into my life in that role as well.
Because there seems to be a bunch of dads in the story.
Yes.
So who are the other dads?
So, you know, this is the thing. There are people that might step into your life for a moment, right? A season, a lifetime, and all of those people have imprinted on us in some way. And so it is all of those dads, whether they are actually dads or they are stepping into that role, they have taught me something. And so those are the people that I think about when I think about just my upbringing and how I have learned to kind of navigate this world and this space. And I know that it is such a privilege to have all of those people stepping into that space for me and looking out for me and guiding me. And I also realized that all kids don't have that. And so I wanted it to be kind of a guide for them as well as a guide for dads.
Incredible. So 1 second. So after you had written it, then you pitched it together?
Yes, we did. So
that's rare. That's rare.
Yes, it's extremely rare, and it is a beautiful gift to be able to do that, something with a friend. And the thing is, for years we have wanted to do a project together, and we've come close a couple of times, but it just wasn't right. And this one, everything, you know, unfortunately, because of the circumstances, we came to this story, but at the same time, it was the right moment for us to tell this story. And so, so after he put me on a time pressure crunch to write it, where I was sweating, then we went out together on it, and it was a very quick process. All of it was a very quick process. So if you think about picture books, generally they do take about 2 years or more.
I think you're being optimistic.
Right, exactly. I said or more. And so this one was written during that summer of 2020, and it came out in January. So yeah, so it was quick.
Yes, that's quick for sure. It's a very timely book.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I have several questions to ask. So did you pitch it to your agent? Did you pitch it directly to Nancy Paulson? How did this work?
So honestly, I was working on other things at the time. I was also on deadline for a book at the time. He did not seem to care. I love him dearly, but he did not seem to care. And so my agent, I did not show it to her until I had done a couple of drafts, because I knew what she would say. You have some other things that are due. What are you doing? And so when I showed it to her, she was like, "Are you sleeping? When are you sleeping?" But so what we did was I worked on it, and he gave me a deadline, a hard deadline in his mind, but in my mind, I needed more time. But so I gave it to him, and he was like, "I already know I don't need to read it because I can hear in your voice that you're not ready for me to see it, and I don't want to see it until you're ready for me to see it. So go back and do it again." And so that was like a first draft.
Okay, so who is the he and who is the she?
The he is E.B. Lewis, and the she was my agent at the time. And so then after I did another draft, his agent and my agent kind of had a conversation, and EB was like, and his agent also thought, as well as mine, that Nancy was the right person to bring it to. And she was like, "Let's do it." So yeah, so that's how it all happened very quickly. I'm speeding through because it was a whirlwind of a process. I think it was a whirlwind for a number of reasons, because it was a very emotional time as well. So there were lots of emotions swirling around at the time. And then you want it to be just right. You want to say just the right things, and you're worried that you forgot something, or I didn't say it the right way, or, all the things. And then it's about my dad in a sense. And so that's another level, not so much pressure as much as it is he knows how much I love him to bits, but it's still, you want him to know on the page how much I love him to bits.
Was he like, wow, Leah, it's a terrific book, or how come you have other fathers there in the book?
So my dad is a precious human being, and I wish everybody had my dad.
You're a daddy's girl, aren't you?
I'm a daddy's girl, but I'm also a mom's, like my mom is my buddy. So it's like I'm on both sides of it. If you see me with my mom, you think we're together all the time like that. When you see me with my dad, he is my heart and my soul as well. But so my dad is one of those people that I won't say he quietly watches, but he is very observant. And then he says what he needs to say when he needs to say it. But he is also somebody that notices when there are things that aren't, when there are things that need to be there, and he will be the one that put it there, but he won't say anything. That is my dad. That's the way he rolls.
At what stage did he see the book?
So he did not see the book. I did not tell them about the book until after EB did the illustrations.
Wow. So one second, sorry.
No. So yeah, so it was a long time, and they were like, "Why are you stressing? You seem more stressed." And I wouldn't tell them why. I didn't, and I talk to my parents almost every day, and so I didn't, whether that's text messaging or that's on the phone, just for like a quick check-in or a long family group conversation. I was keeping it under wraps, which is very hard. Very, very hard. But yeah, I did not want them to kind of see any parts of it. I wanted them to see the whole. Yeah, I wanted them to see the whole.
So E.B. Lewis.
Yes.
Why is he embarrassed because of his first names?
No, you know what? It is one of those things, since he is also a fine artist. It's just his separation from children's world to adult stuff and adult spaces. It's just, it's simply that. But he could.
So what do they call him in the fine art business?
They possibly could call him Earl.
Is that his name?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I thought Eldred, but I wasn't far off.
No, no.
Okay.
I like the name Eldred though.
Yeah, it's not a bad name.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go back to the story itself. Do you have a copy of this beautiful book? It's so lyrical, and it's so, the illustrations are incredible. Do you have a copy?
I do.
Good. That's kind of a dumb question, but
I have many copies.
okay. So the people on the podcast cannot see this book, but they should go out and buy it because it is beautifully written and beautifully illustrated. And Nancy Polson knows how to make wonderful books. So can you open the book at one spread and read a little bit for us and show the
Sure. And I'll let you in on just a little how kind of the stars align in so many ways sometimes. So when we were working on this book, and he was about to start his illustrations, his son had his first grandbaby. So first grandbaby, Ava Rose, and his son at the hospital. And so that happened while the book was being made. So they were perfect for this first spread that says, on that very first day, bundled in blankets, you cried to be heard. Shh, baby bird, I've got you, are daddy's first words. Yeah, so that became the first image for the book. Yeah, and so it's when he called me to say, you ready to see it? I was like, yes. And so when he sent it to me, I was very emotional. And of course, he's on the phone listening for all the things I'm going to say. And then I'm just going to kind of go forward because the book kind of has this turn in it, in this moment where things turn. And it's speaking about the truths of the world that we're in and different things like that. And then the spread that kind of really got me, the one that I feel got us started, I'm just turning to it right now, is this one right here, where it's of George Floyd on a propaganda poster. And I felt like, sometimes people come to books and they never know why it was written, why certain things came together to create this story. But for me, having this in there will always speak to where this book came from and what it came out of. And so I think it's a gorgeous spread, but he put his foot in this one. He really did an amazing job on this one. He really did.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
So let's now talk about your life a bit.
Sure.
Then we're going to get back to speaking about daddies.
Sure.
Because I'm a daddy.
Yes.
And so many of the people who read picture books to their kids are daddies and granddaddies.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we get enough attention. I know you're going to argue with me.
No, you know what? I absolutely will not argue with you on that one. And the funny thing is, I am usually someone who will never say that I'm an author. Like if I'm out and about, I'll never say I'm an author or anything. But sometimes I'll be in the library. This has happened a couple times now, and I get a little bit emotional. But like a couple weeks ago, I was in the library, and this dad and his two sons were in the library, and one had a stack of books. And he comes over to me and he was like, what book are you getting over here? Because I was in the picture books. And he was like, what are you getting? And I'm like, I don't know yet. Is there a book I should get? And he was like, well, those are my books. And his dad is like, don't bother. And I'm like, it's fine. And he's like, yeah, let's find you a good book. And his son was like trying to find me a book. And then his dad and his brother came over, and then we all started talking. And then they went, and his dad was like, are we not going to read books? And they're like, yeah, daddy, you're going to read this one, no, this one. Aren't you going to stay and read a book with us? And I was just like, I'm not going to stay and read a book with you, but I'm going to ask your father this very strange and bizarre question, if he could send me a mailing address. And I was like, don't worry, it's nothing crazy. I'm not going to show up at your house in the middle of the night. I would love to have a mailing address for you, because there is a book that I want you all to have. And I feel like you are the type of dad that speaks to everything that's in this book. And so I've done that a couple of times where I've sent Daddy Speaks Love to a couple of people. And I would have loved to be a fly on the wall when it arrived. And they got a chance to
Wow. Did, did they write you?
they wrote back at the time. They were like, well, why didn't you say? Because I didn't say. I just said there's a book that because even if they sometimes they don't connect your name until they'll Google. Everybody is Googling everybody now. They're like, why didn't you say? I had so many questions, but I'm like, no, it wasn't meant for that. It was just me recognizing another dad in the world who speaks love like my dad.
Wow. And are you one of the authors who sometimes sees a kid and just pulls a book out of the car and gives it to them?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And if I don't have one that I think that they would like, I'm all about telling them, this is what you need to go. Either the library, the bookstore, you need to get it on your Kindle, your mommy's Kindle, somebody's Kindle. You're going to love it. Yes, I'm so that person.
Wonderful. So let's go back to Leah as a child.
Sure.
Because I have my theories.
I was a happy child.
That those of us who write for 5-year-olds are 5-year-olds.
I am a happy child. I was a happy child. And I'm a happy adult. So this is the thing. I write all over the place. All over the place. I think for me, I was just doing a radio interview the other day, and the person was saying, why is it that you chose to write for children as opposed to adults? And I was like, well, I do actually, that's where I started. I started writing for adults, and a professor of mine in graduate school was like, was overhearing a conversation of mine, and she said, do you think you would consider writing for kids? And it was something that I had never thought about, but I will always try anything once. And so I tried it. But what I was telling the gentleman that I was talking to the other day, when I was growing up, my parents were the type of parents that made sure that my brothers and I saw reflections of ourselves out in the world all of the time. We would travel around the world to different places, and they were very strategic in where they brought us and what they brought us to. We did not go on beach vacations. No. At 6, we had itineraries of places that we were going to see. We were visiting historically Black colleges at, like 8, 9, and 10, and having the college tour. And the tour guide would be like, wait, where's the prospective student? And my parents would be like, right there. We could not touch the ground in our chairs. We're kicking our little feet. And the students would be like, huh? And they'd be like, those are the prospective students. Take them, let them see. And so those were always in our itineraries wherever we were. And so as a child who had that gift of kind of all of this world in different pockets, it's something that I wanted to share with kids that might not have that blessing. And so that's kind of I don't think it was conscious, but in a way, it's kind of like, I cherish that now. I don't know how much I always cherished it when I was young. Sometimes I just wanted to go to the beach, but I cherish that now. I cherish the things that they taught us, that they shared with us, that, we grew into the people that we are because of those trips, and because of our close-knit family bonding on those trips, and the revelations that we learned about people that look like us. So, yeah.
So, okay, we're going to go back to that issue in a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in a lovely family. You don't have any of the angst that I look for in children's writers.
No.
And that's okay too. You're an outlier in my graph, Leah, but there are some people that actually had a lovely childhood. I should say that my happiest moments with my dad were when he read to me as a small child.
Yeah, very
so maybe that's why I connected this so well with your story. So you grew up, and when did you start? And I know that you studied writing. Mm-hmm. You have a master's degree in writing. It's wonderful. So when did you decide to be a writer?
Oh my goodness, it was not a conscious choice at first. What it was at first, those trips that we used to go on in different parts of the world, this is before the internet. I had a million questions. And I was like, well, what happened to the person before that? Well, what happened after that? Well, what happened to the city after that? What happened to the town? Where's the house? I would ask all of these questions, and my parents would literally be like, go to the library and find out. Now, of course, some of the things that they had taken us to were really obscure or just were not well documented in a lot of ways. And I'd go to the library and be sorely disappointed in the card catalog and not finding what I needed. And then they would turn to me and they would say, well, Leah, what do you think happened? And I would write little plays and little stories that my brothers and cousins and I would act out in response to that trip.
Wow.
And so it was like this thing that I was just doing, not really thinking about it, because I was just trying to like quench a curiosity. And so that's how I really started. And then it wasn't until I was older, I was in love with writing in school, but I also was a big athlete. So I thought I was going to go into sports medicine, and I was kind of like in this whole world of sports. But I did love to write. And one of my teachers in prep school had us do like a 30-page short story. And I was so excited. And I ran home, did the story. We had like 3 weeks to do it, but I did it in like one night. I was so excited, and I brought it back, and I was a good student. And he calls me in his office and he's just like, I can't believe you wrote this. So I'm thinking, yeah, I know. Isn't it amazing? But as he kept talking, I realized it wasn't so amazing because he thought I plagiarized. He didn't think that I was capable of writing that story. And so for me, while my parents wanted me to see in it, that's how good you are, right? That is not what I saw or heard or thought. All I saw was that he didn't think I was good enough. And that actually turned me away from writing for a long time. And I didn't write anymore. I didn't think about it. I didn't talk about it. I just completely went a different way. And so that's another thing about kids. We can turn them in a positive direction towards sunshine, or we can really turn them in another direction away from certain things by our words, by our actions. And so every time we have to be so cognizant of what we're saying and doing, and how we're expressing, however they are doing what they are doing, even if it's not exactly right.
So whoever this, how old were you when I don't know when?
So at my prep school, your junior year is your sophomore year. So what is that? How old was I? I was in 10th grade.
Okay, because I'm from Canada. We don't have things like that.
Yeah. Well, no, most people don't have things like this.
Okay.
My prep school is like one of the only ones that tried to confuse the whole world.
So this we call them tormentors.
Okay. Yeah.
The people who say you're not good, you plagiarize, this isn't you, da 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 da. So now that you're a very successful author, is he your go-to Nana Nabugu person?
No, I think what that did for a number of things it did. While I do not appreciate that he did it, while it hurt and I still remember it, it has taught me a lot. And there are lots of things that I remember because of that, not just for myself, but how I interact with other people.
You're too nice.
Because guess what? I have a mom that handled things, so I didn't need to handle it.
One sec. All the people I interview on this show are nice, but you are too nice.
No,
you know the Nana Nabugu, like somebody who says that you're not good, that you can't sing, and then you become Ella Fitzgerald or something, and then there's this, Nana Nabugu, Dana Baby Boo, and you don't even have that.
No, because what for? Like, I don't know. It's not, that's not like, what he goes on and does him. I've moved on. And for me, although I went away from it, when I came back to it, I was completely invested and in love and missed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, because sometimes the tormentors bring us around, you see.
Yeah, exactly.
We should say thank you to them, but
I won't go that far.
Okay, good. So so you're a human being at the end of the day.
Yes,
okay,
I am.
All right.
If we were on the soccer field or the football pitch, he would know. He would know.
Yellow card. Okay. So and so you started writing when you were seriously in university?
Actually when I went to university, I started taking a lot of literature classes. So it was more a lot of reading. And I came upon like Toni Morrison, Sula. And I just remember thinking, words can do this. Like these little things that you put together can make me feel this, can make me like so invested in a story that is so different from my own. And I started recognizing that power of words, not thinking that I would ever be trying to dabble in that space, but just, I was just kind of mesmerized by them. And so there was a lot of literature courses. And I also took a lot of anthropology courses. I took Chinese. And so I was taking all this different stuff. So I still wasn't truly writing. But when I got out of school and after another tragedy, 9/11, I moved to Italy. And while I was in Italy, I threw parties at nightclubs. And I used to watch people and I used to think about the stories that were in them. And I started writing stories in the nightclub.
1 second, that was your job, to throw parties at nightclubs?
Yeah.
People hired you to do that.
And I was really good at it. And
I'm sure you were.
I loved it. It was fun.
It's a dream job.
Yeah, it was fun, especially when you're in your 20s. You know, it's
no, even for somebody like me, it's not bad. But you know, at my age, the parties have to start at 7 p.m.
See, you don't go out of your house until 1 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
So I started writing like next to the speaker, and people would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like, "I'm working on a book." And they were like, "Huh?" And I wrote a couple of novels in the nightclub. And that's when I was kind of like, maybe you should explore going back to school for this. Maybe you should think about it to want to do it this badly. Because I also love to dance. So for me to be in the nightclub, the only time I put my computer down was when my jam came on and I get on the dance floor. But yeah, so that's kind of what turned me back towards school and going to school for writing.
You sound like one amazing human being. Where are you now? I'm coming to visit.
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay, if you hear a knock on your door.
Come on.
Okay, so when did your breakthrough come? Your first book, your agent, your breakthrough.
So for me, it was everyone has a different story about how this happens. But so when I was in graduate school, or when I started graduate school, I started an adult fiction program. And it just so happened that the program that I went to, the reason I chose it was Spalding University. The reason I chose it was because it had an international component. And they had residencies in different parts of the world during the summer. And so for me, it was kind of ideal to kind of, pop away and come back. I was also looking at programs that were traditional programs in London. And this particular school was going to London for one of their residencies. So it had popped up in my radar that way. I didn't know about it. But the wonderful thing about it is it had a writing for children component to it that all the other schools that I was looking at did not. So when I went to school, was writing for adults, and we were on a bus one day taking a trip in London, and the faculty member from Writing for Children peeked through my seat when I was talking to my friend. "Have you ever thought about writing for kids?" Remember when I told you that earlier? That's when that happened. And I was like, "No, not really, not the kind of books I'm writing." And she was just like, "I think you'd love it." And so I took her course halfway through the program and I fell in love. And that first semester I went to Senegal, loved to travel, was on a trip to Senegal hanging out, and saw this little boy on a wall. And I wrote this really little short story, just kind of for myself more than anything else. But I put it in my packet of work. And she was like, "This is the start of a novel." And I was like, "It is not the start of a novel by me." I was like, "I don't know anything about Senegal like that. And I am not about to write about an experience that is not my own without doing heavy research. So no, I'm not writing this book. Probably don't even want to do it even with heavy research, because I know the harm that has been done when people, write something and they haven't really gone in there and done the heavy lifting. And I didn't think I was up for the task. And I also just didn't want to do harm, period, point blank, drop the mic, end of discussion. But my professor, would not, her name was Ellie Bryant, would not let it go. And my main character's name was Moore. And she would be like, I just want to see a couple more pages of Moore. You can send me whatever else you want, but just send me a couple more pages of Moore. So we kind of made a deal that I would send her a couple of pages of Moore every packet. And at the end of the semester, I was super excited because I thought I could put Moore in a drawer. And my next professor was like, a little birdie told me about Moore. I would like to see some more of Moore. And I was like, oh my goodness. So through my, the last 2 years of my program, my professors would not let me not write it. And when I graduated, I was so excited because I was not going to write it anymore. And someone who is a dear friend and heart and soul of mine, and one of my biggest cheerleaders, Leslie Newman, read some of the pages of Moore's story. And she was like, I want to see more. I want to see more. And she would not let up for a couple of years. And then I wrote One Shadow on the Wall. She pulled it out of my hands, kicking and screaming. And basically, I first started with referrals to agents. And they were all kind of like, I love the writing, but I'm not sure what to do with this. I don't know where this would sit in the market, because it was a story about a little boy in Africa, but it wasn't a war-torn Africa. It wasn't quote unquote impoverished, really, in those types of stories that you often see. And they were like, we're just not quite sure where it would fit. And I was like, I get it. I understand. I didn't actually push back on it at all. I was just like, it could go in the drawer. I'm going to work on something else. And one of the people that I was referred to, he was like, I really love it. And I just don't know what to do with it. And I've just turned over to agenting. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing. Do not stop writing. And so I started working on my next novel, The Magic in Changing Your Stars. And fast forward like 9 months, I was at an event and I saw him speaking, this man, and name is Ruben Pfeffer. And so, yeah.
He's very famous.
Yeah. And so Ruben was at this event, and I just said to myself, if our paths cross at all, I will just tell him thank you for, just that encouragement, that little bit of encouragement, because it really helped. And I just turned and pivoted and started writing something else. And he almost stepped on my foot one night. And I said, oh my goodness. I had just said in my mind, if he crosses my path, I'm just going to speak to him. I'm not going to, go out of my way or anything. But if he almost stepped on my foot. And so I tapped him on the shoulder, and I was just like, I know you do not remember this story or who I am. And I kind of went in, and he was like, yes, the little boy and his sisters and And I was like, oh my goodness. And he was like, send it to me again. And I was like, no, I didn't come over to say anything like that. And he goes, no, send it to me again. He was with a friend, and the friend was like, he doesn't need to ask for it again, And I was like, I know. But he was like, send it to me again. And I did. And from there, he was like, let's do this. You want to do this? And so then it sold pretty quickly. And I kind of was like, wait, what? I wasn't ready for that. But it was one of those long, slow, quick kind of agent author publishing stories.
Like a tango.
Yes.
Except you
a
don't know
messy one. A beginner's tango.
Is there such a thing as a beginner's tango? To paraphrase the movie. And the tango is that's a really good analogy. I was thinking of Cinderella because of the shoes. authors who succeed as you have need an extraordinary talent, but beyond the talent, you also need this gumption, to open your mouth and say something, to reach out. I call them luck burglars.
Yeah.
You could have walked away from Ruben, and that
Yeah.
would have been the end of that.
Yeah.
But like to have a career like you have is one in, I don't know, 50,000, and I'm guessing, and there has to be a story here, because these extraordinary events like your career, they don't fit on the regular graphs of life.
I think, it goes back to that, what we were speaking about with Daddy Speaks Love, and all of the people who have been representative dads in my life who have stepped onto my path. In my writing journey, so many incredible people have kind of stepped into my path and been like, I got you. Just take one more step. Don't give up yet. Just take one more step. Like when Leah stepped onto my path, that book was going in a drawer for certain. And my parents, who lived in the Middle East at the time, had come to visit me, and I was kind of kicking and screaming. And they were like, what is the problem? Because I'm groaning at my computer screen because Leah has sent me a message to check in to see how, the book is going, and the book was not going. And I didn't know her at the time. So I was kind of like, my parents taught me to be polite, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to work on this book. And I don't know what I'm doing. And she just, in her beautiful way, was just like, no, just keep going. Just keep writing. It just keep trying. And then my parents, when they were at my house, they were standing in the door of my office, leaning, looking at each other. And I had told them what my problem was. And my mom looked at my dad and she was like, do you want to handle this or should I? And my dad looked at me and he goes, you're not the child your mother and I raised. If you stand in the way of that little boy that you saw in Senegal, not see his possibilities on the page, and as growing up, it was always about my brothers and I seeing our possibilities in the world, right? So that one hit right to the center of my gut, my heart, my core. But it was also this moment where I realized it's not about you. You go do the work. This is a story to try to showcase possibilities for this little boy that you saw for like 1 minute of your life.
Wow.
And so it changed then. And I changed then about working on the book and about trying to get it finished. And, my parents were like, Merry Christmas. And they sent me back to Senegal. And I stayed there and literally like would sit and just watch for hours, just kind of filling notebooks, recorders, putting sand in little sandwich bags, like grabbing all kinds of incense, tasting everything, touching everything, just so I could try to figure out this space that I was in. And so all of these people along the way, and still to this day, step onto my path. And sometimes I'm like, why? I don't understand why you're doing this, but I'm appreciative, but I don't take it for granted. I definitely don't take it for granted.
So listen, we've been speaking now for 40 minutes, and I'm just going to have you back on the show because we haven't talked about privilege, and we haven't talked about prejudice, and we haven't talked about all of the iniquities and inequities of America and the world.
Yes.
And we're going to do this again soon if you're willing.
Yes.
Because it's just so much fun.
Absolutely.
What's the next book coming out? So Daddy Speaks Love is out since January.
Yes.
Everybody run and grab a copy. And the next book, children's book.
So I have another book that will come out next year. It's another picture book, and it hasn't been announced yet. But what I would say about this book is sometimes you write a book for someone else because it was inspired by someone else. This is a fable that reminded me not to give up. I needed to write this story for myself at a time where I was feeling like is this the right thing that I should be doing? Or should I be doing something else? Should I go back to sports medicine? Should I go to flipping houses? I don't know. Like, should I do something else? So the next picture book that's coming out, it's all animals. And it was a book that I wrote for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Leah Henderson, this has been a whirlwind of an interview. I just, I would love to reach over the screen and shake your hand. And there's so much we haven't talked about, but people tell me that that's the sign of a good interview. So I hope to have you back soon. Maybe when the secret book that hasn't been announced yet launches. And maybe next week, if you want, we can do something off stage. I have so many other questions to ask you. This has been terrific. So Leah Henderson, on behalf of the New Books Network, it's me, Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel, wishing your incredible joy of love to continue for you and for all the other so many people that you reach out to in your words.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, I was waiting for this. What are you talking about? It was so much fun. Let me know if you want to grab a chat next week.
Absolutely.
Just you and me without all these thousands of people listening.
Sounds perfect. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye.